All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Forms class on a Waffle Wednesday on a very special Administrative Professionals Day. So be sure to reach out to Amy, Kayla, and McKenna and tell them thank you for all that they do for all of us, because they're such a key piece to our entire team and everything that we do here. So please say something to them. Shower them with gifts if you can. All right, let's kick things off today.
ASF candy. ASF candy.
That too. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Today's forms is the 22L and A. This is the land and acreage addendum to a purchase and sale agreement for vacant land properties. And then also the 22MH, which is the manufactured home addendum. We're going to be going over both of these. These are a little bit shorter addendums, not quite as full as some of the other ones we've been going through. So we might get done a little bit early. So we'll see. All depends on questions and everything else, but let's go ahead and kick things off as we normally do in forms class. And that is getting into the manual to the forms, because there's so much more information in the manual than the forms themselves. And of course, there's the instructions on how to use the form, which it is numbered for each item. In case you are confused and you don't know what certain things mean, you can always jump to the manual, either from Express Forms or directly in Transaction Desk. And you can get to those anytime in case you need help. All right, so let's start. Land and acreage addendum to purchase and sale agreement. General comments. Use. This addendum may be attached to a purchase and sale agreement when the parties wish that the transaction be subject to certain contingencies listed in the addendum. Generally, this addendum should be used for a transaction involving a large parcel or parcels of property. So it's not necessarily only vacant land. You may have a residential property, maybe has a huge land, with it. And that's when you would still probably use this addendum with even like a Form 21. So let's get down to biz. B. Tony, you want to hit B?
Buyer's acknowledgements. The buyer acknowledgements listed on page 1 provide information to the buyer regarding the contingencies in the addendum.
Yep. All right, Amber, you want to do C?
Yeah. Attorney review. Agency law requires that you advise your client to seek expert advice on matters relating to the transaction that are beyond your expertise. If the provisions of this addendum are beyond your expertise, you should refer your client to an attorney.
Yeah, so there's an attorney review contingency in here.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows the form number of just a plain attorney review contingency addendum? You guys know it? Anybody?
22AR.
Oh, you're so close.
22A.
No.
No, 22. No.
Reverse the last two letters.
22RA.
There you go. So what that looks like down here is that it looks like, let's see. There it is, irrigation. So the attorney review is right here on its own. So it's kind of a little bit separated. But the 22RA actually has this with a little bit more in it, I believe. So then we'll get to that addendum, of course, as we go through, this forms class series. We're, going through every single addendum in the MLS. So that's why we read these things. All right, let's get back up to the top. Okay, so assistance in filling in the blanks, of course, the date of the purchase sale agreement, the buyer's name, the seller's name, the property address, and number 5 is contingencies. check the box for each contingency that applies. In doing so, select whether buyer or seller is required to pay for the work associated with each contingency. Note that the party responsible for paying for the work to be performed is also responsible for timely ordering of the work. So what they're talking about is any of these boxes, if they're not checked, what does that mean? What if the boxes are not checked? We talk about this in forms class all the time.
It's not on the form.
Yeah, it's not even there. It's invisible. So you miss it, you know, there's no box checked, it's not there. And that's the thing that I know, like when we first kicked off the forms class series, we read the part about, you know, where most lawsuits and issues arise. Whenever it's a broker negligence, most of the time it's because they did not check a box. That's literally what it says in there, or they didn't fill in a blank. So don't forget how important it is for those boxes to be checked. And you can explain it to clients that way too, when you're, you know, reviewing offers, like, okay, we're going through the, you know, this 22D, and these boxes we're not checking because they're not even part of the agreement. So we're not even going to read them. This is, you know, you can read it, but we're not going to review that because it's nothing that we need. All right. Number 6, Gavin, you want to hit 6?
Yep, contingency period. Insert the number of days for each applicable contingency. The default in the addendum is for 10-day contingency period. The parties should consider extending the time for certain contingencies based upon how long the related work may take.
Okay, that's a very key thing. So we all know that there are defaults in all of our contracts, right? But what is a best business practice? Fill it in. If you're gonna use the default and you're gonna have 10 days, put 10, fill it in. Do you guys know that attorneys, when they're gonna sue a broker or a firm, do you know that's the very first thing they look at is the contract to see if you actually did reasonable skill and care? And filling in the blanks is part of that requirement. So don't leave blanks. Don't leave things to default. It basically makes you look sloppy. And that's what attorneys are looking for from you. They're going to sue you. So gonna keep it default, fine. Fill it in. How many times have you guys received an offer and listing brokers and every single thing in the whole contract is just not checked, you know, for all the defaults? Right?
Yeah.
All the time. Let me guess, that broker probably didn't even phone call and say they're submitting an offer. That's the typical broker that does that.
So, like, an offer I submitted recently,
Mhm.
I tried to reach out to both listing agents and their phone numbers didn't work. They're different numbers, but they didn't work.
Neither one of them work.
Either one of them, like, they didn't even exist.
So then you go up the chain. You call the firm next.
Yeah.
You would call the designated broker and say, and if they don't answer, then you call that office phone number.
So
You
I
basically go
called-
every number you
so
can up the
It
chain.
turns out they owned the list, like the property.
Oh, they were the seller too?
Yeah, so I ended up having to talk to the director of finance for the company. And they acted like the broker on the other side of the deal.
That's,
So it was like, it was really crazy. ICAP Realty dudes, some small firm, but
yeah. I mean, you're gonna run into that from time to time. And if you have to, I mean, there are rules in place that if you've exhausted all efforts to contact, you know, the listing broker or the broker on the other side, and then you've documented that and and this is the thing, I've talked to a few, our own brokers, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting a hold of this person. I haven't heard anything from them. Like, okay, well, okay, when did you last call them? Well, I haven't called them yet. What? I emailed them, like, okay, they haven't responded. Okay, so first and foremost, go through every option you can, right? I mean, 7 levels of communication, right? You guys, I mean, if you haven't read that book yet, please do. It is real estate specific. And it really tells you about how important it is for us to communicate. And the highest level, of course, is face to face, right? I mean, that's the highest level of communication you can have. Next would be, I mean, they've updated the list. It used to be phone, voice to voice, but now we've had Zoom, video conferencing and stuff, right? So you probably put that next, right? Because that's virtual. And then voice. And then, start going down the levels of all the other, electrical, text and email, smoke signals. You got it.
I think to add to what you're saying, Eric, something I realize people why they don't check their boxes is they're trying to be slick, right? They're trying to get past you. That's what I tend to kind of see on certain parts of the contracts.
Maybe. Could be.
Contract voidable.
Yeah. Yeah, or lazy. All right, so these contingency days, we really got to look at this. Let's break this, but we can't really skip this over because it does go into the manual. The manual only said, hey, here are the defaults. Like if you went through and checked all these boxes and you left them all blank, all of them are going to be only 10 days. And some of these definitely will take longer than 10 days. How long does a survey take, do you guys think, to be completed and done?
2 weeks, maybe? 3?
I think 3 to 4 weeks.
It's 2 weeks to even get somebody out there.
Yeah, there you go. Tony said it takes 2 weeks just to get someone even out there, probably. So is 10 days good for that default? No. I mean, I would probably say you're gonna need like 20 days in here at least.
You're lucky. I mean, they'll come out, they just like to see what's going on, then they'll schedule this.
Then they schedule, then they, bring the equipment and do the actual job.
I just did one, it took about a month and a half-ish. And I was like, and he was like, you need it right away? I'm like, yeah, I need it right away. It took about
About a month.
a month.
So
Few days.
definitely when you're dealing with vacant land, sometimes you can't, really have that quick close. You need to make sure that you're writing your deadlines probably a little bit extended whenever it comes to land or larger lots. Or if the buyer's like trying to do some, different stuff, like, oh, I want to subdivide it. I want to build a garage. I want to do, then you might look at having longer closing and stuff like that, only because of the, having to do all these tests and feasibility studies. All right, so perk tests. What's a perk test? You guys know?
The ground, how it absorbs water.
Yeah, it's a test to see what the water is in the ground. Like they'll bring in like a backhoe and they'll dig in like a pretty dang deep hole and they'll see how long it takes for the water to fill up and how high will that water table be. So is 10 days enough time to go hire someone, schedule that, perform the test, get the reports back? Probably not. I mean, you're probably looking at another 20 days, at least. Okay, on-site sewage system. So this has its own OSS if you're going to use this. I mean, I don't like, I don't think I would have this one marked because you guys know there's county specific addendums for Pierce and Keene, county, and then Island, so there's specific county required addendums for our contracts. So don't use this one. The only time I would use this one is maybe if it's not in one of those counties and you can just use the regular 22S. If you were using that, then this is pretty close to being the same. Yeah, it's pretty close, but I think it's shortened a little bit. It's missing the other and one more box, I believe. So, most of the time, I think as a general rule, I would just stick to just don't use this one at all. Go ahead and just use the county specific addendum because more than likely you're going to need to. Okay, next is water quality. and or purity test showing water meets the approval standards of the Department of Ecology and standards of the governing county. Water quality test to be performed by a qualified professional. Water quality and or purity test shall or shall not be submitted to a private lab for further evaluation. You're not gonna know that question at the last part there on lines 90 and 91 until you know who's gonna be doing the test. So are you guys the ones gonna be doing these tests? Of course you had to do this. Yeah.
Suit on. Each time I do a test, different suit.
You hear that, buyers? Alec is willing to rent a backhoe himself, get out there with a little mini hard hat and go and dig in someone's yard.
That's why I do. That's how I'm gonna
Yeah, no test, you cannot do any test, no feasibility at all is done or performed by you. It's okay to call the county, call the Planning and Land Services Department and ask questions, but every time you do, you need to always ask, who did you talk to? Get their first and last name, you make sure you got the direct line or contact or routing number to them. And you know what department they're in and the day you talk to them. And just write that down as notes and say, okay, buyer, yes, I talked to Brian Smith in the Planning and Land Service Department at Pierce County. This is what he said. Please call. You know, I talked to him on this day, but you know, you should talk to him as well and verify this information. As soon as you send that email to them, what did you just do? Yeah, you've documented, you CYA'd, you covered your butt. That's what you did. It's okay to be, to get information like that, but you definitely can't warrant it. And you do not want to be the person that, oh yeah, hey, yep, you're all good, man. I called, yep, you're approved, they're good. Because as soon as you do that and there's issues, what did you just do? You took all the liability. Now you warranted information that now they may move forward and purchase the property just because of what you said. That's easy lawsuits. So just remember when you're dealing with vacant land to kind of always have that in the back of your mind. All righty. Oh, wait, is there more? I thought there's another one more after the water. Yeah. Then the quantity test, same thing. Timber. So these two also defaulted to 10 days, but if someone's doing timber, again, the buyer's got to hire a specialist. Most of the time, all of these items are buyer paid by buyer and ordered by buyer. Why? Why would they do that? Why would you do that?
Once you want to use some property. Yeah. Liability, like all that stuff. Easy to.
But buyer beware state.
Yeah.
They're not just buying it to put a campfire on it and roast marshmallows. They're trying to actually like.
Right.
Yeah, so then we'll go back after you too. It's like, well, you paid for it, it's your thing, it's what you wanted. Like inspection for the single family.
Exactly. If the seller's like done these, what could they do? Who are they gonna hire? Maybe the cheapest person they can find. Yep. Did a survey. Me and the neighbor got together. Cracked a couple of 12 packs. We ran strings right between our properties. We eyed it, it was like, yeah, it was really straight. Yeah. So who knows? I mean, you don't know. It's just not as good. And it's actually, as listing brokers, you wouldn't want to do that either. Because what happens if there's an issue after they close on it? Who are they going to go after? Seller, right? They're going to go after the person who provided the information, documentation, whatever. So it should be done by the buyer. The only one maybe that, you could split the cost or something maybe, and that might be something we could do an addendum for, is the survey. Because that's going to benefit the seller if they don't go through with the property. And I mean, obviously all the other stuff will too. And you might get some brokers who say, hey, upon completion of tests, we want you to release all documentation, you know, that from all feasibility study tests, all documentation will be provided to seller after completion of each test. You might have like some savvy listing brokers who might do that. So I don't know if it's a good idea. I think I wouldn't give a blank statement. I would just say that it's a case by case scenario. Just say no.
Yeah.
All right, number 7, Alec, you want to read 7?
Check the box for each additional provision that applies and fill in the relevant information for the applicable paragraph. Please note that if a feasibility study box is checked, that paragraph supersedes and replaces the feasibility contingency in Form 25, vacant land purchase and sale agreement, period.
Yep, so with a vacant land purchase and sale agreement, Form 25, we already went through and did that form. Oh, no, we didn't. Wait, no, we didn't. That's coming up. There is a checkbox for a feasibility study right on the front page. Anybody who does vacant land, you would not only use that as your feasibility. That is not good enough. There's a feasibility addendum. I want you guys to think of it just like an inspection contingency addendum for a residential. The feasibility addendum has a lot more teeth in it, and it has an automated termination checkbox if you don't give your approval in time, which is really key. Because sometimes, because in vacant land, like if you waive that, there's really, unless they have the financing contingency still in there. I mean, a lot of times you're probably dealing with maybe a little higher earnest money, you know, guarantees and stuff like that when a seller's taking vacant land off the market for a buyer for going pending. So you're going to always want to use that 35F and not just rely on the small front of the page, like, oh, the feasibility contingency is just 20 days box, you know, that's it. So this one's a little bit shorter. Let's see, what was the 7 should be right up here. Here it is. Yeah, so this is the, let's see, how close is this one to the other ones? Yeah, so this one's a little bit shorter than the actual 35F. But if you use this box, my suggestion would be not to check that one and actually just use a feasibility study addendum with that. It's a lot cleaner. And then it does have that automated termination. This one just says, if disapproves, you know, the feasibility study and terminates the agreement, earnest money shall be refunded to buyer. So it's got that in there, but it's saying that buyer's got to give notice. You missed your deadline to give the notice on time. Now the buyer's waiving the feasibility study and has to buy the property as is. So it's definitely better to use the feasibility study addendum, not to check that one. Okay. So same thing, all these other ones, irrigation and water. If there's any shares or water rights, definitely going to be marking these. Assignment and assumption. At closing, seller will assign, transfer, and convey all of its rights, title, and interest into and under any lease of the property, and represent and warrant buyer that as of the closing date, there are no defaults under the leases. So anything, if there's any leases at all, you got a tenant in the property, anybody leasing land or anything like that, you're going to be using that. And then I think it's a good one to have the attorney review contingency. It is nice that they kind of sneak this one in there. You know, even if it's like a 5-day, I think by the normal 22RA is, I believe is 5 days. So you got 5 business days for having an attorney review. That's, if they don't do it, then what did you just do? Like why is that a good thing? Well, you just put another shield of protection in front of yourself, right? Because they don't go to the attorney and review it. And then all of a sudden later on, something happens and they're like, oh, we wanna sue, we wanna sue you. They take it to an attorney. The attorney's reviewing the paperwork. And what's he gonna go to? Oh, you had an attorney review contingency. So what attorney did you go, take this to and have review? We didn't do it. So you didn't do it? Well, okay, well, this isn't gonna look good for us. I mean, unless there's something else in there. See what I mean? It's a huge protection. I knew one broker, an old school broker, who used to add the 22 REs, add the attorney review contingencies in every deal she did. I mean, I don't know if I would go that far, but definitely if you have somebody that's a little squirrely and you're like, I would, maybe at that point say, oh yeah, my firm makes me put these in here, you might say something like that, just to get it pushed through. But it's definitely a good addendum to have. All right. Accessories. So this is like any specific term items, that to include any accessories. So any portable buildings, sheds, outbuildings, game feeders, livestock feeders, then troughs, irrigation equipment, fuel tanks, submersible pumps, pressure tanks, corrals and pens and gates and fences, chutes and other. So if they've got personal property that they want to, convey with the sale, they can do that here. So that is also available if that, most of that's going to come with like probably farm or, farmland, stuff like that. Agricultural. All right. All right, there's the additional, so document review period. Justin, want to hit 8?
Document review period. Check the box if the purchase and sale agreement will be conditioned upon buyer reviewing certain documents related to the property. Insert the number of days that seller has to provide documents listed in this paragraph. List the documents that the seller is required to provide, and insert the number of days that buyer has to review the documents.
So same thing, how long they have to review it. Number 9, Hayden, I'm gonna hit 9.
Buyer disapproval, buyer disapproves of an applicable contingency. Buyer must provide written notice of disapproval and termination of the purchase and sale agreement within the respective contingency period. The buyer timely provides that notice, the earnest money will be refunded to buyer.
Yeah, so buyer's disapproval. You've got to be able to send that timely, right? So all your dates. I will say that, this can be a complicated form if you have different contingency dates, deadlines for different items. That's the one thing I have seen some brokers get into trouble with. If you, go ahead and at the top up here, remember the section for the default 10 days for all these items that you checked. If you have like 10 here, 15 here, 20 here, 30 here, you're going to have a ton of different dates and timelines to make sure that you get approval, for by that deadline. So I would be really careful and maybe just make the deadlines the same time. Maybe look at doing the 20 or 25 day or something on every one of those. And then just as a backup, your feasibility study addendum should be longer than the date that you put on all this. Because then you've got a extra escape clause. Because all of a sudden, you go through all that, seems fine, and you've passed those dates and those deadlines, and the next thing you know, something comes up, and they're like, uh-oh, hey, we just found out the county just changed the zoning on this. Now I can't build ABC. I can't do what I wanted to. See what I mean? If you would have just left all of these deadlines to be the same as your feasibility study, now those times are gone. Now now you waived it. So it's kind of nice to have that additional protection in there. All right, last, I think there's only one more to read. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I think it's additional, right? Yep. Additional, Jason, wanna hit 10?
Grab the glasses.
Uh-huh.
Additional inspections, check the box if the purchase and sale agreement will be contingent upon buyer conducting additional inspections. If recommended by a qualified professional, insert the number of days that the buyer will have to conduct the additional inspections.
So additional inspections, just like additional inspections on the 35. Right? So by default, this one's a 10-day, the other one is defaulted to how many days? In the 35, do you guys remember? For additional inspections? What is it in residential?
10.
For additional inspection? 5. So this one's is gonna do, it's basically the same thing, but it's mainly for vacant land, so they know that these things usually take longer. So this goes to 10 days. So, because the computation of time, 5 or less, weekends and holidays do not count, but 10, they do, but you can't land on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday.
Right.
So, little bit longer timeline for vacant land. All right, and then Pete, wanna do 11?
Tax designation. If applicable, check your appropriate boxes related to the tax classification on the property.
Okay, so tax designation. This can be a big one. If you have property that's classified as, like farm and agricultural or timber or open space, there is tax benefits for that seller. They basically they're super discounted, depending on what it is. I can't remember. I think farm agricultural is the highest discount, I believe. Followed by open space and then timber. But basically the seller gets, it's like senior exemption. So normally if their taxes were like 10,000 a year, with the farming agricultural, it could be like only 2,000. So it's deeply discounted. But if the buyer's going to be wants to buy the property and he's gonna like, oh yeah, this was a farmland, I'm gonna tear it down because I could build residential houses out here. I could put 40 lots, 40 homes. I'm gonna put a whole development here. They're changing the use, which changes the tax classification. Normally you think, oh yeah, that's easy. Yeah, they're just gonna change it. But the buyer is going to have to pay, is it 8 or 9 years back? It's 8 or 9?
I think it's
8 years backwards from the current year they close on the property. They'll have to pay all of those discounted taxes. So it could be quite a bit of money.
You know why?
Yeah, because who wants money?
Then, yeah.
Yeah, the government, the state, the county, the city. So they're like, yeah, we will discount this, but if anyone wants to change the classification, now we'll get that money back. So you really have to be careful if you're dealing with vacant land and the person's talking about changing, the one that comes up a lot for sure that we see is the open space. That one I tend to see more, but it's the same rules. So if it's open space and now that buyer's like, yep, I'm gonna build here, I'm gonna do this, subdivide, blah, 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 whatever, they're gonna have to change the classification and pay those taxes. So let's go ahead and read these ones. I see some puzzling looks on your faces here, Alec. What?
I mean,
Never heard of this before?
No, I've been looking into it because of that. There was sales being talked about people who everything can be zoned for duplex or triplex, fourplex now, and the classification starts coming up. We can call people like, had something like this now to have this.
Yeah.
So is classification about zoning? Is that what you're talking about, or?
No, this is just the these three classifications. So under this RCW right here,
Oh, I see.
right?
Yes.
Oh, how the heck did I do that?
I knew about it.
Huh? When did John By's class? That was weird. Okay, it's freaking out there. Oh, I can't, it's locked.
Oh. Okay, it's okay.
8434?
Just for time.
Yeah, that's why. So special benefit assessments.
Oh, I see.
So the benefit assessments, for the seller. Let's see, where is the, yeah, but maybe it's in the definitions. I wanted to see what the rule was for how many year. Year. $100 more per acre per year for 3 calendar years preceding the date of that. No, that's not that. I mean, there's a ton of laws and rules for the discounts. Oh, here it is. I think this is the one. So when land has been, once been classified under this chapter, it must remain under such classification and must not be applied to other use except as provided by subsection 2 of this section for at least 10 years from the date of classification. It must continue under such classification until unless withdrawn from classification after notice of request from withdrawal is made by the owner after the initial 10-year classification period has elapsed. Notice of request for withdrawal of all or a portion of the land may be given by the owner to the assessor or assessors of the county or counties in which the land is situated. If a portion of a parcel is removed from classification, the remaining portion must meet the same requirements as did the entire parcel when the land was originally granted classification under this chapter, unless the remaining parcel has different income criteria. Within 7 days, the assessor must transmit one copy of the notice to the legislative body that originally approved the application. The assessor or assessors, as the case may be, must withdraw the land from the classification, and the land is subject to additional tax and applicable interest under this other RCW 8434-108. Agreement to tax according to use is not considered to be a contract and can be abrogated at any time by the legislation in which event no additional tax or penalty may be imposed. So
That it uses in like a hobby vineyard, or if you have like a Christmas tree farm.
yeah,
You have a house on it, but then you get the
Yep.
discount off of the.
off of all the land use for the other part.
Yep. Well,
Let's see, I don't know if I said, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff to this. Obviously, if someone's doing that, send them to a professional.
Yeah.
Did we do removal? Buyer shall not file? We haven't done this one yet, right? So we had Pete already read. What did Pete read? This one? No. Yeah, right? Tony, want to do Pete?
Yeah, removal from classification. Buyer shall not filing notice of classification continuous at the time of the closing, and the property shall be removed from its classification. All additional taxes, applicable interest, and penalties assessed by the county assessor when the property is removed from its classification shall be paid by seller, buyer, or both seller and buyer in equal shares. Seller, no boxes checked.
But if you don't mark this box and you leave this empty. Right, then it's invisible, it's not there, so you better make sure, yeah, you guys know what's going on. When you have, large pieces of property, I think it's, definitely a good idea to maybe ask title to ensure that the classification of the property isn't any of the three. That's not designated anywhere for open space, farming, agricultural, or timberland. Okay, and Gavin, want to hit C?
Notice of classification continuance. In order to retain this classification, buyer shall execute a notice of classification continuance at or before the time of closing. Seller and buyer shall timely complete all documents necessary to continue the classification. The notice of classification continuance shall be attached to the real estate excise tax affidavit. Buyer acknowledges that if buyer fails to execute a notice of classification continuance, the county assessor must reassess the property's taxable value and retroactively impose additional taxes, applicable interest and penalties, which buyer shall pay.
How's that sound? So most importantly, if they want to continue the use, that the paperwork gets done before you guys close. Because if you end up closing and that seller's like, and this has happened, I have heard of this happening. All right, I just got my $2 million. I'm out, left the country. No one could find them. Who has to help complete the paperwork? Seller has to, right? Buyer and seller. Seller and buyer shall timely complete all documents necessary. So seller's gone, you can't get a hold of them. You can't get that continuance. Now they're gonna hit with all those, so make sure if you have, if you have any one of those land uses and they either want to continue it or they want to change it, you're gonna have to be doing additional paperwork. So it can get kind of complicated in that one.
So the moment you buy, you gotta do paperwork to continue usage or?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Title and escrow does?
you get title and escrow's assistance on that. They can help. In fact, they should be helping a lot with that one. But also, I mean, have the client go see their CPA. Because you don't want them getting hit with a tax bill like that. Because who's the first person they're gonna come after if they get that?
So if it takes you 2 years to develop the land, you can just file for continuance of normal use.
Yep.
Until
Yep.
change it to develop it, right?
Yep. In fact, that's what a lot of times they will do.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be paying the taxes while they're going through the entire timeline of developing the land and everything.
Yeah.
Or, at least getting all those permits and approvals and
Right.
all that kind of stuff can take a lot of time. So, yeah. All right, questions, initial dates on that one? You're done? Any questions off of that one before we close land and acreage? Oh. All right.
I guess what we'd see more often would be like, someone buying a piece of property to put like a Garrett or an Armstrong home on. And they kind of do the feasibility, that's part of their selling.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you would, have them do the initial feasibility, and then if there's something additional, that would be the additional days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, they're gonna want they'll give you a timeline for a feasibility study that they want.
Yep, that they do. And
Yeah.
then you'll have the additional stacked on top of that.
Yeah. I mean, more than likely, even with the additional, you still got your feasibility study anyway, and that's, kind of the fail safe, and that's the major one that you've got to make sure that you finish everything by that deadline.
Mm-hmm.
All right, manufactured home addendum. Use. Title elimination. A manufactured home or mobile home can either be real property, in an example, real estate, or personal property, like a car. In order for a manufactured home to be real property, it must be 1, affixed to land, and 2, the certificate of ownership or title must be eliminated. An example, the title of the manufactured home as personal property must be eliminated in accordance with Washington law. Form 22MH should be used as an addendum to the purchase and sale agreement for those transactions where a manufactured home is currently personal property, but the title will be eliminated prior to closing. See Legal Bulletin 195 for additional information. So when you're, oh, God, can't copy and paste from that. Let's go up in here, 195. There it is. So do a search on the search bar, get to the legal bulletin, and it'll give you the full thing. It's a breakdown in a review basically about what's the difference between real property, manufactured. This goes a little bit further in depth than what we're gonna go through into this. If you ever need it, I doubt you will. So use personal property, Form 22MH may also be used as an addendum to the purchase and sale agreement where the manufactured home will be transferred as personal property pursuant to Washington Administrative Code, Section 308-56A-525. So assistance in filling in the blanks. Number 1 is the date of the purchase and sale agreement, of course. Number 2 is the buyer's name. 3 is seller's name. 4 is the property address. Number 5 is the manufacturer. Insert the name of the manufacturer of the home. How are you going to find this out?
Taxes.
How do you find
Is it on the placard? Yeah, there's no little pins on the placard.
Talk to us about the placard. Talk to us about the placard.
Piece of metal that fixed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's one way. What's another way?
Yeah, all right.
I'm guessing it's on the title you're gonna eliminate?
It's on title. So you'll be able to tell sometimes from tax. So let me find a listing. Active. Washington. King and Pierce. Yep. And manufactured home. There's a lot. Yeah, we'll do some brand new ones. One in Puyallup. All right, so this is a 55 plus community of Viking estates. So let's look at this. In my hand, this is a park, right? It's got to be. See what they have on this one. So in the legal description, in Realist or the county, you will see the make, the model, the year, and the serial number. Hopefully you have all of that. So the one thing about this one though is there's no land. This is just the home, and this is in a 55 and over community, so there must be space rent. Yeah, $982 a month. So what does that tell you about this manufactured home? Bingo. It's personal property. Is the title eliminated? Are you sure? Is the title eliminated? There's a title for it. It is not title eliminated. They can't eliminate a title permanently affixed to the land because they don't own the land. Oh yeah. Lot different. So you're not really selling the land at all. You're just selling the personal property. And there can be a lot of different things that happen with this. You know, with the space rent, what's included, they get all water and garbage, it looks like in this, so they got to pay their own power. $982 a month for space rent.
A lot of them make you qualify before you put an offer.
Yes, that too. Now you got to get park approval before you can even purchase. So there's definitely little bit different thing. Always read the agent only remarks. Sometimes they have in the supplements, they might put stuff in here for application and whatnot.
You would always include the park manager and the number in there.
Yep. Have them call. Definitely a good choice. All right, let's go back. Let's look at the next one. What do we have here? That's another one in a park. Yeah. So let's do this. I'm gonna go, let me revise this. And let's do residential. So the difference when you do manufactured homes, you're basically saying in a park. If you go residential, that's telling you it's residential, it's single family residential. And now if you add in your additional fields, you can add in style code. Style code can give you, I have a ton of different additional fields. You can add a bunch. So if you need to like fine tune searches, you definitely should add a bunch of these different things. And you do that by selecting the add, remove additional fields, and then pick all the ones that you think that you would, you can use. Residential, here are the codes that you can, utilize for what you're looking for. But if you use the style code, now we can look for manufactured home, single wide, double wide, triple wide. So how many does that bring? 60. And here's one in Puyallup also. Here is tax ID. Now you're going to see something different. I don't know why this thing's so slow. Sometimes it does that. So now you see the difference between this legal description and the other one. Now you see the actual land. You can see in here, it'll say land use, mobile home. And I think you still will get the, so it's got a separate garage too. So go. I think it is. Oh, let's see if it says it in the type. I forgot where it says it on this one. Okay, so the first thing you want to look for is county land use. It says MH, manufactured home, title eliminated. If it doesn't have that, typically it's still personal property and they own the land, which you can have that. If you run into that all, I mean, you want to verify with title. Preliminary title report is going to be able to, get the full thing. So hopefully the listing brokers have done their job and uploaded to the supplements the preliminary title report. And they did. So in here, there's a recorded manufactured home title elimination application recorded under recording number. Boom. So now you got proof that this one has in fact been title eliminated. It's no longer personal property. It is real property. Trick question for you. Does the homeowner need to do a Form 17 on the home that's in the park? Trick question. What did we read in the very beginning?
I don't think I've ever seen it.
It's not real property until what? Title's been eliminated. Is it a real property disclosure statement? Yes? Yes? Does a manufactured home in a park still required in Washington state to provide a seller disclosure statement? Yes or no? Let's go around the room. Pete, what do you think? You think a yes?
I don't know.
say no, but I'd probably have them do it anyways. So, yeah.
Yes? We got two yeses back there?
No,
No?
that's a yes.
Yeah.
That's a yes.
I've been looking at a lot of manufactured homes lately and I've never seen one, so I think no.
So you say no?
Yeah.
All right. Guess what the answer is?
Yes.
It's yes. It is yes. I verified with our state attorney on this. I was actually taught that you do not do one because it's until it's been title eliminated. But there's a part that's actually in the laws and the RCW that pretty much tells you they're not exempt unless they fall under the exact same exemptions. So don't let anybody tell you different. I have the documentation straight from our Washington State hotline attorney. So if you have someone who's arguing with you, like, no, we don't provide one, because it's not real property, it's personal property. It's a home, it's lived in, it's sorry.
Need to know the roof.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I need to know if the home's been, had issues. I need to know if the home has any remodeling.
Those need maintenance, just like a regular house.
Yeah. Yeah, if I asked that question in auditorium of 1,000 people, it would probably be split like 500 and 500. Like, no, yes.
Hmm.
So if you got it wrong, don't feel bad. I used to get that wrong too. So I talked to the attorney about it. All right.
And there is a small chance that it might not be title eliminated,
Oh, yeah.
but it's sitting on land and it will be title eliminated. Especially if you're getting a loan on it, you can do that too.
Mhm. Yeah, so this form right here, if it's not title eliminated, now we can ask that it be done. So that's the other part of this form. Whenever you are dealing with manufactured homes, you are going to have labor and industries compliance inspect. I mean, it's just going to happen. That they come up, unless it's all cash. It's all cash, then it's like there's no requirements for FHA or any other, HUD or any of the guidelines or VA or anything else. For them to come out and inspect that, to do it. But there's a lot of things they look at. The things that get dinged the most are decks, awnings, anything that gets attached to that home.
Hmm.
So if anything's attached, most of the time when it's manufactured,
Specific verbiage in the regulations is it may not pierce the, cannot pierce the membrane of the, which means citing anything.
Yeah, so you're not supposed to attach anything to it. Yeah,
That's, nope.
I've seen that before though.
yeah.
I've seen this.
The last manufactured home deal I did, and it was a nightmare. It was a long one because it was an estate sale and they didn't take the cash offer. They went with the one that was much higher, but it had a rehab loan. And I was like, oh, we're going to be, this is going to be a long haul. I hope you guys know, what we're signing up for. Be prepared. I'm guessing we're not going to close in 45 days even. So it's going to be longer. And sure enough, yeah, it was like 80 something days that I think it took total time. It took forever. But the L&I came out and I said, like, this deck is connected. That's gonna, like, they're gonna call this out. They're getting a loan, so it's going to get called out. So I don't know what you want to do. And they're like, oh, let's just wait until they do. I'm like, okay. L&I came out. Yep. Can't be connected. It's got to be removed, like separated from it and then sealed, like wherever they, pierce the membrane.
Is it just for them to be able to sell it?
Yeah. So they literally came over, and then when we had that huge windstorm, like towards the beginning of the year, that night is when they had to go over there and actually get it removed. Their contractor, from the buyers, they ended up getting an approval to let the buyers, because the seller's like, no, we're not going to do it now. We're done.
My parents bought a manufactured home and are getting put on land. It's in Montana, so I don't know what the differences are, but I'm just like, interesting.
Yeah. There's just a lot of things that you will deal with on this.
Yeah.
Did one on Ocean Shores. That
Oh.
was, What I just sold,
Mhm.
where the land was purchased cash.
Yep.
The manufactured home was put there in the seventies, was never title eliminated. It didn't have any tags on it because they didn't do tags
Yeah,
back then.
yeah,
And then the guy who wanted to buy it was gonna try to get a rehab loan, but then had to go with a different loan because they had to just remove the whole.
Yeah,
one and
that's-
put a new one in there is what they did, but it was a pain in the butt,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
Another thing I've ran into is banks won't lend on it if it's been moved twice.
Yep. If it's been moved 2 times, it's not getting a loan. As soon as they find out it's been moved 2 times, because they have to keep records on these. Back in the downturn market, in 2000, 8, 9, 10, there was a lot of shifty stuff going on and people were literally like not paying their payments. And then the next thing you know, they like, hey, my buddy's got trucks and we could split that house and we can take it. Let's just move. Let's just take the whole thing. We'll just steal the house. I have land, you go put it on, remove the thing. So literally the bank would take over. They're like, where's our, manufactured home, the double wide, they'd show up. And it's just like the skirting and foundation there and stuff just ripped out. It's gone. They're like, the house is gone. Where's our asset? Where did it go? And then they take the plates off. They grind out all the serial numbers underneath it and everything. So then you just got this structure. And then they go and like sell it, someone else put it on, and the next thing you know, it's sitting there for a while, and then people are like, well, where, what, there's no plates on this and stuff, so, they sell it to someone with cash. Right? So is there any inspections, is there anything needs to be done? No. Nothing. They just close on it, and then all of a sudden, years later, now they wanna sell. We just ran into this.
That's great.
Yeah, we just ran into this. And, yeah, sure enough, the deal died. They couldn't get financing. They couldn't find records on it. And they said that we have no records of the structure. We can't tell we don't know the year. We don't, we have no idea. This property never had a home on it. So they went back to, trying to call the seller and stuff, and they said, oh, we bought it from some company, I think that went out of business,
Yeah.
is what they said. So someone took it, sold it to them, they, sold it for cheap, they literally just stole the house. So, yeah. So just, there's some crazy things you might encounter. I think the all-time craziest thing I had in my own experience back in about 2004, 3, somewhere in there, 3 or 4, went to a listing appointment. I showed up to the house. It's a Rambler with a nice 2-car garage, with living above, like an apartment above, and to the side of that was a huge RV garage. It looked really nice, very Spanish looking, like stucco material and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, this is very unique house. Walk in, oh, meet the sellers. Oh, hey, come on in. I was like, wow, this is very unique. And they're like, yeah. I was a builder and stuff. I did tons of big, elaborate, what did he say? Construction, right? Or was something like that. And I'm like, So I'm looking at it, and then I'm like looking at the way I was like, this is wow. Wow, this is pretty, unique. And it had some posts inside, pillars in there. And so sit me down, go over the presentation, and they're like, we love this, Eric. This is amazing. Yeah, we're really happy. He goes, man, you can't tell this was a manufactured home, can you? And I said, what? And I'm like, there's no way. What? He goes, yeah, this is actually 2.5 manufactured homes. I got a deal. I got a deal. Yep, got it all. Put this on, I took the existing home, I split it in half, separated it, built in between it. And then added another half. That part of that half is what we did on top of the garage. You really couldn't tell, but I'm thinking in my mind, like, what would you, if you heard that, what would you be thinking? Like, wait a minute.
Jack, this.
Yeah.
I said the P word. I said, of course you got permits.
Yeah.
No, no, we just did it. Do you think a county would allow that? A city?
No.
No. I'm like, there's no way you can sell this, one, without disclosing, and two, this is gonna be a cash sale only. You will not be able to get financed, and if we list this, you could get red tagged. The city can come and literally red tag you, and I don't even know how we could protect you. I'm literally gonna have to talk to our in-house attorney to see, because as soon as all of a sudden you sell it and then the city comes and red tags the buyer and like, yeah, you can't live here. Now you're gonna get sued. And then the wife was like, I told you that you can't, like, we shouldn't have done that. And I didn't take the listing. I did not take the listing. But you could encounter these types of things. A manufactured home it can be, a little bit tricky, with that.
So what if you did list it and you just put it as cash only?
I literally was afraid that the county and the city was gonna find out, because they did not allow that. They're not gonna allow somebody to Frankenstein put together a house like that. I mean, there's no, they would have to inspect it and do, an occupancy. There's no legal occupancy permit for that residence for that, that's super risky. Yeah, it looked nice. It really did. I could not tell. But why would they do it? You're not getting permits. You're talking electrical, structural, and why not just build the house? Why didn't just get an architect to design it, go through the proper channels?
What if they didn't tell you? Right, and you went ahead with it? Well, like not knowing.
Yeah, I'm thankful that they did, because I honestly, I should have looked up that house to see what happened. I kept an eye on it for a little bit. They didn't list it for that I know of. So I don't know what they ended up doing. Maybe they did an owner contract, and I don't know.
So if you go to full
It's out in
title on it or
Bonnie
something,
Lake.
you would know right away as soon as you went to go full title on it, right?
Do what?
As soon as you went to go do a preliminary title on it, you would have known right away.
Yeah, it would have
It
said
been
manufactured home,
Right.
not even eliminated.
How much wacky stuff's gonna happen now with all the that could be.
Yeah, well, that's part of the worry. I think they heard, and they were talking about that some people might.
Yeah.
So, home.
What about storage?
Storage container homes, they get permits for, and they do some of those are really cool. Yeah, storage container houses and stuff like that. I don't know. That's a good question. Might be modular. Could come or fall under the module. I don't know. It might be this one. I don't know. Have to look. All right. Let's jump back. Okay, title elimination, check the box, insert the number of days in which the seller has to eliminate the title. This provision relates to the fact that the manufactured home is currently personal property, but the parties agree it will become real property. An example, the title will be eliminated before closing. If seller is unable to timely eliminate title and gives notice thereof, the agreement will terminate. No title elimination. Check the box if title will not be eliminated and the manufactured home will be transferred as personal property. So it's not going to be title eliminated. It's going to stick as personal property. it'll be the no title elimination. If you need it to be eliminated, you want this one. Yeah, it's DOL handles all the records for the, yeah, because it's like a car. There's a title. The papers look just like titles for your car almost. So let's get to 10. L&I, manufactured homes are subject to regulation by the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries, L&I. Form 22MH provides buyer with a contingency to inspect the home for the purposes of compliance with L&I regulations. Insert the number of days that the buyer has to conduct the inspection. Note, Form 22MH is not a substitute for the inspection addendum. Form 35, it provides an additional contingency. So L&I inspection is totally separate. That's not for the inspection for a home inspection. So don't get confused and leave out your 35. Compliance and deficiencies. If buyer finds any L&I compliance deficiencies, seller has an opportunity to remedy the deficiencies. Insert the number of days seller has to remedy any L&I compliance deficiencies. If seller fails to timely remedy any deficiencies, the agreement will terminate. Just know when you're looking at manufactured, homes at all, when you show up and the first thing you see is a deck, the awning or anything attached, you might as well tell the buyer right then and there during the L&I inspections, we're going to have to ask the seller that has to be removed. They should be floating. So right away, talk to the listing broker, say, hey, well, it's a manufactured home. You know as well as I do that this has got an awning, this has a deck, this has this, that these are supposed to be floating and not, penetrating the manufactured home's membrane or any of it at all. So just be on the lookout, that it's something that would have to be dealt with, and it's nice to know that right up front. All right, and then of course, initials and date. And you are good. Actually, this is a full signature one. Why did they say initials and dates? These are signature ones. All right, any last questions? Pretty clear? Clear as mud? All right, guys, that is class for today. Thank you for making it. We will see you on the next one.
Clear that I don't want to be involved in any of those transactions.